and welcome to the BSR Sports Podcast from the fans, for the fans. Today, I'm joined by a new member of the team who we introduced last week, Luke McFarlane. Welcome again, Luke.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And the regular who you'll see on this podcast with me every single time, Leonard. Paddy, welcome back
All
again.
right, mate.
Hello, mate.
I'm brilliant. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, mate.
Right. All good, thank you. Happy to be back. You buzzing to have the World Sports Podcast back? Ready to get free flow once a week now?
Aye, looking forward to it, mate.
Yeah, we'll get a wee team flow going now.
Hmm.
We'll hopefully have a podcast once a week for all the world sports fans out there. So we'll get right into it. Dubois, unfortunate defeat on, well, it wasn't Saturday there, but it was the Saturday before. How did you feel about that defeat, Paddy? A lot of fellow Brits, were upset with that defeat. He went in as favourite and he didn't show up, did he?
Nah, he was. I thought Dubois was a fighter that was built up more and promoted more. But like the other guy, Joe Joyce, he get wrote off. I thought. He's like a silver medalist in the Olympics, and he's got a massive amateur background. Not so much Daniel Dubois. But Daniel Dubois, you've obviously saw him in previous fights. He's got some power on him, and you were thinking that he was going to get a knockout. I mean, I had my money on a knockout for him, but Joe Joyce done the unthinkable when he bet him, made him quit.
He showed his Olympic power, didn't he? And
That's it.
Dubois, he did make Dubois go down a few ranks again, put him back down. And that eye fracture, I don't think most of us reckoned it was an eye fracture at the time. We've seen his eye swell up. A couple of people called his decision to take a knee very amateur. I think it was Carol Frampton called his decision amateur anyway. Said the fact that he had an eye injury and he just took a knee out of nowhere.
I think
it's a hard one because obviously with the eye fracture, you're starting to worry about your own health. But I don't think any of us realised how severe it was. We just seen a swollen eye and thought, right, he's taking that too easily there, the knee. What's your thoughts?
I think in boxing it obviously gets frowned upon if like you see a fighter quitting, but as us as journalists, we don't really know what's going on in the ring, obviously, and it's their health. You saw it before with the fighter Kell Brook. He fought Gennady Golovkin, and he fractured his eyes as well, and you saw how he's been fighting lately as well. So it's really damaging.
To him as well.
Recently as well.
That resurfaced in another fight, so it shows like how severe an injury it can be.
It's a crazy sport, and you got to be hard as nails. That's it.
Yeah. So what do you think's next for Dubois? Obviously, he went into this fight undefeated, full of confidence, and he's been knocked down a peg or two. So, do you see a big fight for him next, or do you think he needs to start? Well, maybe not start again, but do you see him getting a big opponent next?
He seemed to be fighting a few garbage men, like part-timers, before getting that big fight against Joe Joyce for the Commonwealth belt and the British belt. So I think he's got to start fighting the world-class opponents rather than just these guys who he's knocking out in a few rounds. But yeah, I think it'll be Joe Joyce who's going on to get the bigger fights.
Obviously Joe Joyce, what age is he now? 34, 35?
Yeah.
And he's proved himself. He has come up against a well-rounded opponent, and he's finally got the chance to be able to prove himself, and he's done it. He dominated him, made him look like a schoolboy. Do you reckon Joe Joyce deserves a fight with Anthony Joshua? That is the question.
I think we could see that fight, couldn't we? They're thinking if Anthony Joshua takes that Tyson Fury fight, that he might have to vacate one of the belts, because to make the fight you need to not fight your mandatories and whatnot, but then it's not for all the belts. So I think Joe Joyce could end up fighting for that belt if Anthony Joshua goes on to fight Tyson Fury, not for all the belts. It's a lot of politics in boxing.
I don't think he should be fighting for a world title though. Like, I know what you're saying about Josh having to vacate his belts, but I swear they've been saying that for years because he's had his belts, obviously, except from when he lost to Ruiz for a good few years. And it was the same with, I think the last time he unified, he got another belt. They were talking about losing the other two. So they always seem to be saying that. But I think like with Eddie Hearn and all the people he has behind him, like they'll make sure he doesn't lose it, have to vacate any, because the whole point is fight like going for the like all the belts basically. So when him and Tyson Fury fight, if one of the straps aren't there, like the IBF or whatever it is, it's not gonna be the same.
Yeah. So you don't think Joshua deserves it then? You don't think he deserves all the belts?
Joe Joyce, you mean?
On the one? Oh, sorry, Joe Joyce. Yeah.
I don't.
Sorry, mate, you go.
I'm just saying. I think he's still. I don't think he's going to get the title fight off of that Daniel Dubois fight. I think he still needs to fight maybe the number 1 ranked guy, which is I think Alexander Usyk. So.
Yeah, it's a tough one for them at the moment. But after such a convincing display, I think we can all agree he does deserve it. 100%. Coming on to this weekend's fight, just on Saturday there, another British up-and-coming fighter who we all thought was going to win again, Anthony Yarde. What was your thoughts on that fight?
Personally, I've watched it back. I never actually saw it in the night because I was working, but I watched it back, and there's this whole controversy that he thought he was robbed, but really the other guy, Lyndon Arthur, again, he get really undermined in the build up to it and whatnot. He get wrote off, and he's just showed his boxing ability and jabbed the head off Anthony Yarde and won on points clearly.
Yeah, you seen that, and not a lot of us knew about Lyndon Arthur coming into this fight, and he came into the fight, he stepped back a bit, and he just jabbed, he plucked away at him, and he used his boxing expertise, and hats off to him, because not a lot of fighters can come into a fight so highly underrated and dominate a fight as he did, because Anthony Yarde just wanted to get. He wasn't going for the jab. He just wanted to get the knockout. As we all know, Anthony Yarde with the firepower, but it just wasn't happening for him. And I think it's because he didn't get to use that explosive power. That's when we've seen the controversy. That he was dismayed to not get the decision end.
Again, he's another one who's been built up by BT and whatnot, and you just see him fail to win these fights and the defining fights. He was in the title fight, the world title fight before against Kovalev, who was quite old. And you thought Anthony Yarde was going to win. He had a round where he could have knocked him out, and it was the same in that Lyndon Arthur fight where he should have just went for it and put everything into it. But he never got him out of there, and that's how he lost.
I think it comes down to his trainer though, because it was the same in the Kovalev fight where he got told, I can't remember what round it was, just to go all out. That like Kovalev was there for the
7 or 8 or something.
Yeah, and I think he dropped Kovalev in the previous round. Don't get me wrong, but it was like he was gassed after that round. It was clearly you're either going to knock him out or you're going to gas out and lose the fight, and it was the latter that happened. And I think that Tunde guy, he doesn't seem the most like experienced coach. The same the other day, telling Yarde that he was winning in the fight and that he could just kind of breeze the last round.
Yeah,
you seen Yarde like kind of walking around, like Yarde wasn't the aggressor in the last round the other day, and it's like you're down in the scorecards. Like
I think I saw him trying to get Lyndon Arthur to try and come for him, even though he was losing on the cards. So
it's like why is he going to do that? You should be.
It's got to be better management from his coach there.
Yeah. So I think like he's a young British boxer, but he's had 2 losses now. I think he should be looking at getting a new trainer, someone who gives him better advice. Because I think you could argue that Tunde's lost him at least one of the 2 fights that he's lost.
I think you're right.
Yeah, very poor management, as you said, in the last round. you're right. He was just sitting off him, and he was letting London Arthur come up to him. You can't afford to do that in such a big fight. Anthony Yard had to win that fight to get his career back on track, and it was all for him there. It was all there. London Arthur's not the most technically gifted opponent, and it was all for him. I think this time I would more so blame the coach over Anthony Yard's technical ability in this fight, because we all know Anthony Yard's got it there. Even though he has been blown up, as you said, Paddy, we all know he's got the ability there. He's got that explosive power there that we see very seldom in some fighters, especially. He's a unique type of fighter, and to see him sit back in the last round, it wasn't good to see, if anything. Even if you weren't an Anthony Yard fan, you like to see a last round where two fighters just go for it, don't you?
That's it, aye. And the fight never really lived up to the hype, did it? Same with the Dubois Joyce fight. They just, as much as it is boxing, the fans want to see big haymakers and whatnot, but it never came to that.
Yeah. Another fight that happened 2 weeks ago, we'll get back onto it. We've seen the world shocked by Jake Paul's situation again. What a performance from Jake Paul. He is on the rise, isn't he? Surprising many people again, even though he was against somebody who hadn't fought a professional fight before in his life. He didn't make a meal of it. How long was it that he knocked him out in? It was twice or three times he knocked him out, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think he knocked him down a good couple of times inside the first round or whatnot. And I think it shows you that he's taking the sport seriously. But I think he's a bit daft to be calling out the likes of Conor McGregor and who else? Self a clickbait. So it's all just to get his name out there. He's trying his best. I think he called it Mayweather as well, even though he probably knew. We'll get on to this in a minute about his big brother fighting him, but I think he probably knew. But what did you actually make of the fight? Nate Robinson. Yeah, so he obviously just took that fight for money and trying out boxing. He's obviously came from basketball background, but I think it just showed you that Jake Paul's obviously been taking boxing seriously, and he looks as though he trains all the time, and he does actually have a bit of power to him.
Yeah. What about you, Luke?
Yeah, much the same. I think I'm actually I don't want to say I'm impressed with Logan or Jake Paul, but I think like when you've seen the way they fight, they've got kind of like good technique behind them and stuff, and they clearly are like investing the time behind the scenes. It's just who they're fighting. It's hard to judge their ability off who they're fighting, because the guy he's fought the other day, it's like he's not a boxer. You know what I mean? They can call it professional boxing, but it's not really. Like you'll have amateur fights that are at a higher level than that. But I think he looks good. He looks like he's putting in a lot of hard work and graft behind the scenes. If you see something like the sparring footage that comes out, it seems like he's hurting like some big boys and some good athletes. So I'd be interested to see how he does like going forward. And we're obviously talking about him calling out Conor McGregor, and when I heard that, it's like not a chance. But obviously we're going to talk about his brother and Mayweather in a second. Like all of a sudden that doesn't seem as crazy. It's like things. 2020, anything can happen. I would I honestly wouldn't be surprised.
I think when you take into consideration boxing, there's many things in boxing, but with YouTube, I think boxing's actually saving. I think YouTube's actually saving boxing as a sport at the moment, because it seems like a dying breed, whereas most people are aiming for mixed martial arts nowadays, because they see the likes of Conor McGregor, they see all these fighters coming through, and it personally, YouTubers have saved it to a degree, but with their confidence, I don't really like their confidence with these like world class fighters, the likes of Logan Paul, thinking he can take on Mayweather. And he can have all the training he wants, but I think we all know what's going to happen. We'll get into that fight just now. So, Yeah, Mayweather Logan Paul. It's been announced. It's a bit of a shock, isn't it? Obviously, both brothers coming from a wrestling background. We know they have got that physical advantage over many fighters. Floyd Mayweather, considerably the best of all time. It was a push from fighting against Conor McGregor. He's got no chance against. Well, he's got no chance against Mayweather, has he, Logan Paul?
I don't think so. Personally, I don't think so. Me and Luke were talking about the fight before, and I was arguing that Floyd is the best of all time. Although I'm wearing my Muhammad Ali top, I think Floyd's the best to ever do it. You see his defensive style boxing, and like his career went on for so long, and he's still fighting because he never really get hurt. And I think even if Floyd turned up overweight or out of shape, he could still put a beating on Logan Paul with probably one arm tied behind his back.
Yeah, I think it is. It really feels like it's down to the money now. Every fight you're seeing is really, it's not to do with people's ability in boxing nowadays. It's to do with the money, and because of that, I can see. I don't think Jake Paul will get the fight with McGregor. I think that's just, like, McGregor will laugh at him, but I can see Jake Paul getting a big boy fight next because of what Logan Paul's got, because he's fighting against Mayweather, and because KSI beat Logan Paul, even though it was by decision, maybe controversial. KSI's going to get a big fight next. Jake Paul's going to get a big fight next. It's very, very interesting for the world of YouTube, isn't it?
As indeed. I saw a thing where it was like this Logan Paul and Floyd Mayweather fight could be like an eliminator to fight KSI. So who even knows what's going on anymore? And obviously Floyd's a master at making money. Floyd Money Mayweather, as he call him.
I'll be interested to see the press conferences if they live up to the McGregor Mayweather ones. I don't think any will.
Brilliant.
I think they're the best of all time. Most definitely, they have to be the best press conferences of all time. That's enough for boxing anyway. What have we got into next? We will talk. Do you want to talk a wee bit about the NBA, Paddy?
I could, aye.
The NBA draft was just recently.
Yeah.
What was your thoughts on that? It was a very interesting draft, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Where do we start off?
I don't know. The standout for me was LaMelo Ball. He was the only. He's the only one. The only player that I heard going into that draft. But obviously the number one, Anthony Edwards, he went to the Timberwolves. I think he led the Division 1 in scoring and whatnot. But his team were 16 for 16, so 16 wins, 16 losses. So I don't really know what it shows you about him as a player. Another boy, James Wiseman, went number 2 to the Golden State Warriors. So they never had the greatest season last season, and that's how they've ended up with number 2 pick. He's been compared to a young in his prime Dwight Howard. Yeah. And then obviously you had LaMelo Ball going to the Charlotte Hornets. So
he looks LaMelo Ball for the Charlotte Hornets especially. LaMelo Ball looks some recruitment, doesn't he? He's been flying in college basketball.
Yeah, exactly. And he was playing in the Australian League last year. He was playing for a team that he owned. He's got all minted, man. And the season before that, he was testing himself in Lithuania. So he looks like a great basketballer, and he's got a lot of experience to play in the NBA.
Yeah. LaMelo Ball. Will we talk about LiAngelo Ball as well?
I heard about him as well. He's ended up signing for the Detroit Pistons on a contract, I think. So now you've got all three of the Ball brothers in the NBA. You've got Lonzo Ball, LaMelo Ball, LiAngelo Ball. So could see them on the same team maybe sometime in the future.
That's very interesting, isn't it? I think, is that the first time ever we've seen three brothers in the one league? Could possibly be.
Yeah.
Could possibly be. Very interesting. But Out of the whole draft, who would you say get the best pick?
I think it's got to be the Hornets, isn't it? LaMelo Ball. I think Lonzo Ball never really lived up to the expectation. He was good in college, but I think his brother's the best of the bunch, and the Hornets will get the best steal.
Excellent. So obviously the season's coming up. That'll start just before Christmas. We're coming into pre-season now.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on trade deals that have happened? What's your pick of the bunch from the trade deals? I think we've seen a very interesting one recently, didn't we?
The John Wall for Russell Westbrook.
Yep.
I think the Houston Rockets, if John Wall and James Harden get going, they could be a force, couldn't they? Russell Westbrook and James Harden, they showed glimpses, but they were never really that championship level, and they couldn't do it consistently. So it'll be good to see.
I think we've seen that in the playoffs, didn't we? Like everybody hyped up the partnership of James Harden and Russell Westbrook, but I think personally for me, I watched the whole playoffs, just about every game I watched, and personally for me, James Harden was the one that showed up. I don't think Westbrook showed up in the playoffs, and that kind of annoyed me because I had so much hype for the young man, and I had all this energy for Westbrook for the playoffs. I thought the Rockets were going to challenge; they were going to go further than they did, but it was unfortunate.
Yeah,
it's now a matter of can Russell Westbrook get his career going again? Can he be the star of the show again, just like he used to be?
I think he could be, because he'll just be at the Wizards. Well, he's got Bradley Beal, but it's like when Westbrook was at the Oklahoma City Thunder, where he was the star of the show, wasn't he? So, and he got the MVPs. I think he averaged a triple double every game or something like that.
That's excellent. So, as for John Wall, the Rockets, do you think there will be a link up with him and James Harden? Do you think he will bring an area of expertise that they've been missing in the team? James Harden doing it all himself for recent years.
Yeah, exactly. I think you'll see that. I think you'll see they two linking up, that backcourt between they two, and you'll see hundreds of lobs and all your dunks in that between they two. They'll be brilliant together, I find.
Yeah, I think there will be a flashy show, to say the least. What about Chris Paul? Chris Paul to the Phoenix Suns. Excellent. That's an excellent signing for them as well.
That's a good pick-up from the Phoenix Suns. Chris Paul, he's a legend, and he's probably a future Hall of Famer. He's a, what do you call it, All-Star. He's been in the All-Stars quite a lot of seasons, so it's good to see them. They're not really the biggest club, but Chris Paul could be a game changer, and they could go on a wee playoff run.
What's your thoughts on Giannis? Do you think the Greek freak will stay?
I think he's going to stay. I think there was talks of him linking up with Golden State Warriors and Steph Curry, but I think he's going to stay in Milwaukee.
I think it's money talking at the moment.
That's it. I think he's after a new contract, so it's whether they offer him all the money. So, did you see also? I was going to say, did you also see LeBron signed a new 2-year contract extension worth
80 million?
Some bloody hell, some amount of money.
80 million was it?
85 million, I think, over 2 years. He's not got a bad life, that guy.
Shows you the money. We thought football was bad there. 85 million over 2 years. But after last year, I think we can both agree that it's definitely been worth it, hasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. The Lakers look phenomenal, and he looks to be at home like he did in Cleveland with the Lakers. I think they could win the NBA again.
Think so? Yeah, they definitely look a contender.
They picked up a good few players. They picked up Montrezl Harrell. He's the sixth man of the year, so like the best guy to come off the bench. They picked up him. They also get Marc Gasol, the centre, so they're going to be good.
What about free agent Anthony Davis? Very surprising move for him back to the Lakers. I think we all thought he was going to move.
There was talks of him maybe going elsewhere, but I think he might have think he must have liked his time at the Lakers and playing with LeBron, and obviously they won the championship. So
Yeah,
that's great for him.
I think if they lost that to the Heat, that probably might have swayed them. But the
Yeah.
fact that they managed to, they basically swept aside the Heat. I think that made the decision for them. So that was a very interesting decision, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right, Blair.
So as for, I think most people would watch the Chicago Bulls with that Michael Jordan documentary. I think there'll be a lot of people interested in them. What's your thoughts? Have you got a message for the Chicago Bull fans on this season? Where do you think they'll finish?
Chicago Bulls, I don't think they're really where they used to be. They used to have the likes of Derrick Rose. They've got a lot more younger guys coming through, but I just don't think
very reliant on Zach LaVine at the moment, aren't they?
That's it. But I don't really think he's the finished article. He's not really a superstar. Mm-hmm. You see him in a dunk contest, he's got all these flashy dunks, but he's not an MVP. He's not one of these guys to lead them to the championship. And I think it's going to be a long time before they're as good as when they had the likes of Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman.
Yeah. Obviously, they've got a new coach, as we were talking about earlier. They've brought in a new coach, get rid of the old one. So it's a fresh start for them. Can you see any more trade deals happening before?
Well, there's still time, as you see. There's still talks of Giannis Antetokounmpo, so there's still plenty of time. And it's 2020. I'm sure anything will happen. Maybe somebody will come back from retirement, or you never know.
Yeah, 100%. Right, look, as you've been waiting for, we will get on to the NFL.
Aye.
Tell us what's been happening in the NFL this weekend.
So some big shocks at the weekend, mostly in the NFC East.
Yep.
You had the New York Giants playing against the Seattle Seahawks, and they beat them. And Washington.
The New York Giants beat Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah.
What a result! What a result!
Yeah, it's crazy.
Tell us more about it.
So going into this week's games, no one in the NFC East had a win against any team with a winning record. And in this they just it seemed like they got almost dominated from the offset. I think a lot of people have been impressed with the Giants defense in recent weeks. Same with Washington, who we'll talk about in a minute. But it seems like that seems to be the only thing anyone in that division can do at the moment is defend and make it difficult for the other team. They've got and with the Seahawks as well, they've been one of the favourites, I think, for the Super Bowl with some of the players they've got.
They were in the final. They were in the final a couple of years ago, weren't they?
So obviously Russell Wilson, Bobby Wagner, who we all know about, got Jamal Adams from the Jets in the summer as well. So I think they parted with 2 first-round picks to trade with him just for a safety, which a lot of people sort of been looking at well, is that really worth it? But I think they've looked strong at times, but it's just kind of some weird results. I think it was the Cardinals who they lost against in overtime as well. So just they've kind of slipped up in a couple of games now, and I think they're second in their division after the LA Rams won their game as well. So I don't know. I think they're clearly a talented side with some really unbelievable players, but I don't think they're going to get to the Super Bowl. I think they'll. I think maybe first round of the playoffs. I think they'll probably lose.
First round of the playoffs?
Yeah, I think so.
What makes you think that? Obviously, we've seen them, and the Seahawks have been one of the superior teams in recent years. So that's a very interesting choice.
Well, I think when they're playing against inferior teams, they clearly they show their class. But I think it's the performances against the Cardinals as well that I'm thinking about. Where I sort of think when you're playing against a team with a good system, good players who know what they're doing, they just seem to come up short, and it seems to have happened a few times. And then obviously a strong defense in the Giants the other day as well. I don't know. It just seems like they're maybe lacking something. They've got DK Metcalf as well, who's been I think the top receiver in terms of yards this year. They've got an unbelievable roster of players. Not many, maybe only the Chiefs have a better squad of players like on paper, but it just doesn't seem to all be going together. I think that's 9-3 they are now, so 3 losses all season. Just don't know, not all there for me.
Yeah. What about the Chiefs v Broncos?
Yeah,
Victory
I
for the
mean,
Chiefs?
same old. They are the team to beat. And like, it's easy to go with that after winning it last year, but I think you just look at them every week and they seem to impress as much as they did the last. I think it was just one touchdown pass for Patrick Mahomes, which is a bit of a surprise compared to how they played.
What a pass, but
Yeah.
What a pass.
This Travis Kelce, their big tight end, like what a player he is. He's just got some weapons at his disposal. Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, they look unbelievable, and I wouldn't be surprised if they go all the way this year. I think, so they've got the same record now. I think or the same amount of losses as the Steelers, both just with one loss. But I think so. Who was it? The Chiefs lost to. I think it was the Raiders earlier in the season.
Yeah,
I think that seemed like a couple of people were talking about them being the sort of kryptonite, like the style the Raiders play with. Is maybe a bit of a challenge to the Chiefs, but they played 2 or 3 games ago again in the second game, and they beat them with like the last play of the game. So I don't think the Chiefs have anything to worry about. Not really any significant weakness or anything in their team. Like they look unbelievable. I think it'd be a big shock for anyone else to win. Obviously, people were talking about the Steelers until last night, and then they lose to Washington, which is another.
Yeah, that was an interesting result, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's crazy.
23-17.
Aye. But again, I've been watching the Steelers in recent weeks. It was that they played against the Ravens in the last game, and they won that, and that was Ravens without Lamar Jackson. They were playing like Robert Griffin III, and he's just not. He's not, I think, of the quality that most starting quarterbacks are in the league. Yeah. So and that was a close game. So I think and the Ravens sort of put up a bit of a straw, like their defense as well, impressed in that game. And I think Washington going into yesterday's game, like 4th best defense in the league. So I don't think it should be a surprise.
Full of confidence.
Yeah, exactly.
Full of confidence. I think as you said, you're talking about the quarterback. I think, well, it's not a thing. Well, no, the quarterback is a pivotal position of the team. That is a make or break. So to begin into a game with a lacking quarterback, it doesn't fill you full of confidence, does it?
No, definitely not for the Ravens. I think I think they're only one. I think they've only got like one more win than losses now. But I think it was coronavirus. I think a few of their players had coronavirus or came in contact with people. So Lamar Jackson will be back, and I think I was talking to someone at the start of this year actually, where they were sort of saying that they thought Lamar Jackson was a one-hit wonder. But I think when you look at his stats this season, I think he still looks like he could be there. Like, I don't think the Ravens are going to get far now, and I think the Cleveland Browns are ahead of them now, and the Browns look more dangerous than they do. So the Browns, they were playing the Tennessee Titans, both went in 8-3, and the Browns made easy work of that. So I think they are the other team. I think they're ahead of the Ravens now. And who'd have thought that? I think the first game of the season was like a blowout loss to the Ravens. But they've just kind of showed with Baker Mayfield, because he was having a lot of critics at the start of the season. I think they're showing how good a quarterback he potentially is. And the Ravens have kind of fallen off the pace. Not all their fault, because they've obviously had to deal without Lamar Jackson in that last game, which is an important game, and that's to do with like coronavirus, and don't even think he had it. Like a lot of people are saying it's a load of nonsense that he wasn't playing.
Yeah.
But I think the Browns, I think they look like one of the strongest teams now, and that's like first winning season since like 2007, I think. So they've turned it around. Yeah, they've turned it around quickly. Probably them and the Miami Dolphins have had like the biggest.
Yeah, I think Miami have looked very convincing this season compared to recent seasons anyway.
That quarterback they drafted, I can't say his name, Talia something. The guy they drafted in the first round, he looks very good. And they've mixed him in well, with the more experienced quarterback, not playing him every game. But I think they had I don't know if they lost a game. I think it's just a 2-game winning streak now, but I think they're 8-4. They look good. Like they could be in the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see how the Dolphins do. But I think the Ravens are probably out of it now with the Browns and the Steelers in that division kind of dominating. But I think it'll be interesting to see as well now that Steelers have lost their first game against Washington, how they bounce back in the next few games. That's kind of what their head coach was saying. And like I said, I've seen them in recent games and not been massively impressed. And there's a good few games where they were kind of taking it to the last play. There's been plenty of games where they've been amazing as well, but I don't think they're on the level that the Chiefs are, or even the Saints or a couple other teams. I think they're a bit behind.
So if I was to say to you now, we'll obviously do plenty more podcasts before the run of things, but if I was to say to you now, name 4 teams that are in the running for the Super Bowl.
Okay, so the Chiefs, the Browns, the Saints, and I think the Buccaneers maybe with Tom Brady, although he's getting a lot of critics right now. But it'll be interesting to see how he reacts.
You can see Tom Brady. He's not the same player he has been in recent seasons and recent decades.
I don't know if I buy into that though. So his head coach Bruce Arians, whatever his name is sort of talking about the way Tom Brady reads defenses and stuff like that. It's like he's how many Super Bowls has he won? Like how are you saying that? How are you saying that? So I think there's definitely an issue there. I don't think next year I would be surprised if Brady and the head coach are both there. Put it that way.
I think it does seem there is a disagreement now.
Yeah, I think despite that though, they've got some crazy players. They signed Antonio Brown as well at receiver. So they just need to get fit on offense, and they can definitely outgun anyone. It's just it's a defense that looks a bit shaky at times, and they've had a couple of games where the defense kind of owes them better almost. But be interesting to see. But yeah, I'd say the Chiefs, the Browns, the Saints, and the Buccaneers.
At the moment, yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for that, Luke. Boys, you've been an absolute pleasure. Thank you again to Luke and to Paddy for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed that. A wee bit more in depth with obviously Luke's expertise in the field of NFL. Let us know what you would prefer to hear from us in the World Sports Podcast. Obviously, it's World Sports. We can talk about anything you like, apart from football, because we talk about that on a Friday night in the Friday Night Football channel, obviously. Check out our previous videos. And until then, it's a goodbye from me. So thank you very much for joining us today.
No bother, Phil. See you after.
Yes.